Okay, next up on the bench is this Meng British medium tank from World War II. Now you can see it's a little funky looking. It's not quite a regular tank. And the reason for that is I'm building this specifically for a Deformed / cartoon group build, which is hosted by two YouTube channels, HobbyTime with Papa Dan and Colonel Reb's Scale Models. Now this is an annual or somewhat annual event they hold every year, where basically the intent is to build something that's deformed, not quite right, but there are some rules that what you can and can't build. So I'm going to be providing my links to their channels, number one, and also the videos that describe the rules that what you can and can't build. But this fits the bill. Basically, I was shopping one day with my the model car minion at our local hobby shop, the hobby center here, and we were talking about this group build, and we came across this kit, and he suggested I pick it up for the next session, the next group build that they were going to have, and that was last year, but then it was canceled, so they're back again this year, so I can finally get to this kit. Now, again, I mentioned it's a deformed kit, so it's a little weird looking. This is part of a series of World War tunes. I'm not even sure what that is, and it's a British medium tank of a Sherman-Firefly. I don't know if they have small, medium, large, extra large, but that's what it says on the box, a medium tank. So let's take a quick peek inside. Now when I bought this, it was already opened in the store, but did a quick look, and everything seems to be in there. Again, very simple. I believe this is also a snap kit where you don't really require glue, although I'll probably be gluing it. And again, there's very few parts, and it should be a really quick build. And let's take a quick look at the sprue trees. There's only two, and the only thing that seems to have happened is this piece popped off, but everything seems to be there. Again, not too many pieces, but there's actually some nice detail for, a goofy looking kit, if you can see that there. So my intent is basically to build it up pretty much as is, and then maybe make a base, weather it and things like that, and maybe make a base, maybe add a goofy sign. I'm not too sure what else I'm going to do, but it's a simple kit. Just, flexible plastic kind of rubber tracks over here, and just a few decals. Well, I won't even bother, but basically it's just, kind of the stars and a few numbers and things like that. So it should be a quick build. Let's see what I can do with this. Okay, I think I know now what a truly, a deformed group build means. Everything was going along fine until I got really just to the second panel here, one of the pieces, and I said, oh, it's a little strange, this little cornered doesn't look all that clean. It's a little deformed, but the biggest surprise was when I took a good look at the part and saw that, this whole section is missing. Basically, this axle that holds on to, the track either with a sprocket or a wheel, is completely gone, including the, the inside part, which actually fits over, this piece over here to hold it in place. So, yeah, the Meng engineers at QA really did their job to make sure I got a deformed part. What can I say? So I thought about this a bit, and I think I can repair it. It's going to be a little work. Took a sprue piece over here, tried to make it, same diameter as that. And what I'm going to have to do is build both the inner wall and the outer wall, because when I put that piece in there, I can't just have it on the outer wall. It has to be really, really solid, because there's going to be a lot of tension with, the rubber track here. So it's going to take a little work. This is not going to be the quick build I was hoping, but hopefully I can recover and build a really, truly deformed build. So for this piece, actually, it looks like, when it was injection molded, it wasn't incomplete, but it's really weird that it's, you know, one part here and one part there. I'm not sure. It's almost like it was melted off, but hey, it is what it is, and I'll see what I can do. Okay, the recovery seems to be pretty much done over here. So what I've done is I've created all this over here. I built all this using, you know, parts from a sprue tree, you know, styrene from a sprue tree, and a bead actually. And what I did is to make sure that this wall is really solid, because again, there's going to be a lot of tension on this. Is I, you know, put a sheet like this and then like this, like this, like this. I staggered it so that corner is really, really solid. Now you can see this is the other part. You know, this is the wheel that's going to go on it, and it is loose because there's going to be like a kind of a cap that goes on top. But I've got exactly that over here, and even the bead will be all hidden, so I'm not worried about that. All I need to do is put a little putty in that corner there, and again, when it comes to gluing this on this corner, I'm going to have a little putty there. And as you can see, the part now fits just as it's supposed to. So the track is back on track. All right, the last step in the recovery was me needing to put some sprue glue here, some DIY sprue glue, and that was because I've got this one other piece that still has to be glued. But as you can see, that part that was deformed needed to be filled up, and I didn't want to use putty or anything like that because I knew I had to drill that hole right there. So I wanted something that's going to dry really, really solid, and the sprue glue is just basically the styrene that's just been glued, dried up. So that done, everything's constructed here. The top turret over here, you can see gun moves up and down, the door is open, and all the other smaller parts are there. The only other parts I haven't glued are the ones that are like blankets and rolls and things like that. So everything right now is basically ready for priming. And one other thing I want to show, which is going to be this little sign I made that's going to be part of the diorama, and it goes along with the history of the tank itself. So I'll explain that maybe a little bit later. Okay, so I thought I'd fixed all the problems because of our deformed kit. You know, the issue where it was actually a problem with the kit, not the deformed purpose deformation of the kit, with that little wheel and the front and everything else. And I found out I had another problem. Basically, when I just did a test run with putting on this rubber track over here, it's so, you know, tight that it just pulls that section right in. And so I went back, put a little extra sprue glue under there. I wasn't too worried about it because, you know, it's all going to be hidden anyhow, except a little from the front you can see it, but I'm not too worried about that. But I was still worried that, you know, the sprue that I'm using as an axle, if you want to call it that, is still not rigid enough. So I was still worried that this was going to be pulling that back. So what I went and did is I took a little stub of sprue, and basically I put it right under the wheel at the same pretty much elevation of where that wheel ends, so that if there is any pullback, it hits that first, and that hopefully should stop it being pulled back at all. And again, I'm not too worried about that, even though you see it now. You know, once it's painted up, number one, it's going to be pretty much hidden, and I'll black it out and stuff like that. And just to be safe, I mentioned I was going to build a little diorama, and I started a little with the base over here. This is just an old frame that I had. And what I'll do is I'll have that hidden. This being the front of the tank, it'll be going in that direction, so it'll be hidden regardless. So speaking of that, this is again just a little quick, you know, quick and dirty setup where I want to do a terrain. I want to get the tracks at least behind it of where this tank, you know, came from in that direction. And so I laid it out right now just in pencil, but later on when I put the grout and things like that, I'll try to get an imprint of the tracks by laying them in gently, just to get that imprint for the tracks behind it. Now, one thing about this is because of, you know, the direction I have to face it and things like that, and my sign I made this way, I'm going to have to make another one because I want it to be going in the direction of cons. Now, this is not the same cons like CANNE, where they have the film festival, CANNES. It's a different con, anyhow. And that brings me to the little history of this tank. So this tank, well, the real one, not the deformed one, the Sherman-Firefly is a variant on the Sherman. And what happened was during the war, the Germans came out with the bigger tanks, much stronger tanks, the Panther and the Tigers, and they were a force to be reckoned with. They were really strong and powerful and very hard to take down. And the Allied nations knew that they had a problem with these tanks, and they tried to avoid them and things like that, but they had to do something. And then the British, in the intermediate time where they could either design a completely new tank or redesign some of their old ones, they took an American Sherman tank, and basically what they did is just added a longer gun to it. So this gun is a lot longer than, the other Shermans in the fleet. And this proved to be remarkably effective. Basically, this was a German tank killer, and something that even, the Germans worried about. So much so that, whenever they got to the certain battles, they would try to pick out these Sherman Fireflies first, because they knew they could take out the Tigers and the Panthers. And what they looked for was that long barrel. So what they sometimes did was actually paint, two different colors. So from afar, you don't see that that's one long barrel. Anyhow, it's an interesting tank. And again, getting back to this con, CAEN, this is from the Battle of Normandy, where these Fireflies had a great impact. And again, they went towards Caen after they landed on the beaches of Normandy. So I want to have that sign pointing in that direction, not that direction. They're not retreating. So the work continues. All right, lots of progress over here. As you can see, I've now primed it. I used some Vallejo primer, and came out really, really nice. Again, lots of detail in this model, despite it being, just a deformed, cartoonish build. Next paint, then the next step I've got to do is the paint. Now, I looked online to see if there were, what are the traditional colors that this tank had, and it was kind of all over the place, but it was never camouflage. At least I didn't find any camouflage paint schemes, which I was thinking of doing originally. So it's going to go back to, they're all greens, different types of greens, and some a little slightly gray green, but I'm going to use this Tamiya dark green, which is a RAF color. And this is actually very close to what the original molded plastic was. So going to be using that. But I do want to do some things with it that I have never done before. Again, I'm always trying and do different things. And one thing I'm going to do, aside from, weathering it with washes and things like that, I thought I was going to give it a try to use some of this Tamiya Weathering Master. I actually picked this up in Japan, and I still haven't used it. Now, it's not dark colors, but I'll be using some of these for the, the rust effects, more on the bottom where the wheels are and things like that, and mud and things, that type of color. But I'm actually going to give a shot to this. This is, a dollar store, cosmetics, cheap cosmetics. I don't even know what you call this stuff anyhow. But I tried this black on, piece of paper and plastic, and this stuff seems to do a really, really nice job. Again, you have to do it very, very lightly. I'm going to give it a shot, see how it goes. These are all actually metallic, so I can't use them, but I can use them for other models that, have more metallic sheen or stuff I want to try there. So, but this, I'm going to give this black a try, and, do it on a small piece first, make sure, maybe the underside to make sure it works okay. And we'll see what happens with that. Now the base. As you can see, I've made a crate, the start of a base, and it came out really, really nice. I'm really happy with this. This is basically a grout base, and what I did was I, shaped some, what do you call it, those foam pieces under here before putting on the grout. And at first it was very, very dry grout, and that's when I did this, this lump here, this wall, this ridge. And once I had that done, I took, the same grout, still working with it. I wetted a bit more, and as you can see here, then I poured that wetter stuff in here. So with the intent of creating these tracks, and what I did is I waited about, I don't know, I guess maybe 2 hours or so, gave it a test try. What I did is took a track and I actually sprayed WD-40 on it because you want it, not to stick and smudge the grout as you're laying down the track. You want it to lift off nice and clean. And as you can see, I got some really nice tracks over here. What I did is I took a piece of paper more or less to say what, the distance I needed for that. But the important part is right over here at the beginning, not so much at the end, because it's, the tank is going to be right on top covering most of that anyhow. So it was important to get these nice tracks, which again, I really, really like the detail I got in there. So the next steps are going to be to, add things like, paint it up, different color schemes. I might do some static grass. I've never, used a static grass applicator. But, a long time ago, I went and bought this at a dollar store, and you can make a static grass applicator really easy with one of these bug zappers. And, I already have some static grass, some DIY static grass, and some store-bought stuff. So if I can and I don't run too long in time, I'll try to do that. And I'll, record that, how I build that. Well, not how I build, but how I use the static grass applicator. And that's pretty much it for now. So again, getting close to actually doing the final paint and deciding what some of these, colors to use for some of these fiddly bits here, the rolls and things like that. So still a ways to go, but it's coming along nicely. Okay, as you can see, the tank is now painted and the decals are on. It's not fully constructed. I need a little more work here, and again, that weathering I was talking about last time. But I really want to talk a little bit more about the base. Now, as you can see, I've already started to paint it, and these are just really just craft paints. Some are washes to get this down, and then another wash over here with a darker to get the tracks. And I did some different coats over here. I was mentioning it's just foam board on the this is like construction site foam board that I picked up really at a construction site, the rejected parts. But I want to talk a little bit more about how I did this part, because I mentioned in my last segment where this was this was dry grout, and this is more wet grout. Now about the grout, I have unsanded grout. You can buy sanded and unsanded. I had unsanded grout, and to get this mixture over here, what I typically do is mix sand, fine sand, and the grout 50-50 more or less, and then put a little PVA glue in just to give it a little extra bonding. But what I want to talk about was how do I get this layer to get the tracks that's basically smooth. And what I did is took the frame that this is eventually going to be sitting in. As you can see, it fits in, but the way I can get this where it's almost like watery grout is I got one of these bags over here. This is just, the organic stuff. It's very, 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 very thin, but about any bag will do. And what I did is I put it in here when I was doing my grout work down here, so that any overflow wouldn't, seep off and go wherever, right? And this way, after it was dried, again, about 2 hours or so, I could easily lift it out and work with it a little more. So just want to clarify that part. So again, now I'm going to be doing, trying to make some terrain over here, and that'll be including, putting little rocks and pebbles and whatever I have. I actually just went out literally just a few seconds ago. I took some dried up leaves, and I'm going to be crunching them up very, very, very finely to put them various places to make this really look organic, if you want to call it that. So again, getting there. Oh yeah, twigs and things like that. So anyhow, getting there. Still have a little work to do. Okay, I'm calling this war over, or at least the model build. This one really rocked. I'm really happy with how it came out. And when I say rocks, I do mean it rocks, because this thing rocks. Anyhow, I did a lot of, the weathering, some of that with that little powder I was telling you, the cosmetic powder, some little rust paint, some washes and things like that. It came out really, really nice. I'm really, really happy. Did some dry brushing and things like that to get some of the grooves out and some of the edges on the tank, and it came out really nice. I'm really happy. One issue I had is almost the last piece I put was this, this bundle of logs that you put under here. Now on one side it's a little high, so if I try to bring this extra weight that they put on for the gun, it kind of rubs on the back, but it really doesn't matter. I didn't want to force it. I think it's supposed to go in, I know it's supposed to go in a little bit lower. I really didn't want to force it and break it right at the end. So I just left it as is, but I might give it a shot later. And again, I really like the look of it. And, there other people have mentioned in these little Meng tanks, they're deformed tanks, but they really do put a lot of that detail in there anyhow. So it really looks nice, even though it's supposed to be a cartoon looking tank, which it is. And as a matter of fact, I did a little more research, and this is in fact from a video game, the so-called War Tunes or whatever it was called from the box there. It's a video game originally, and they basically, one of the things you can have in that video game is driving around in a tank, or you can walk around with guns and rifles and things like that. So again, it became popular, I guess, for the video game was popular, and then these tanks became popular because I heard that there was more than one issue that they came out, a series of tanks. And as you can see, it does look really nice. So if I do see another one of these someday, I'll probably pick it up. I don't know if I'm going to do another deformed tank for a group build, but I do want to thank Papa Dan and Colonel Rev for hosting this group build, and the Model Car Minion, who kept on telling me how fun these things are. And I'm glad I took his word and bought one and got into this group build and had a lot of fun building this one. And again, the diorama is not perfect. I want to mention I did build that static grass applicator, using the parts from the dollar store bug zapper, but it's really not too powerful. So when I tried it, I did a test run first on the side there, and it really wasn't doing a great job. So I said, for this diorama, all I did was I glued in some moss, dried moss, and things like that. I mentioned the little flakes of dried up leaves, a little log here, and then this is actually some dried bark. So it's not as detailed as I wanted as part of the terrain, but again, I was happy with how the tracks came out, and as a little miniature diorama, it's fine. It really looks okay. So that's it for this one. I'm not too sure what I'm going to build next. I have a few in the queue, and I got to just see which one I want to prioritize. And I'll probably have another odds and ends video before I finish another complete build. But this was fun, and I hope you enjoyed it.